In this video, I'm going to share with you how I made over $25,000 with one Shohei Ohtani card, and is going to blow your mind. I'm going to show you where I bought it, how I bought it, what I paid, my method, and all the thinking that goes on behind it. So I bought the card in November of 2023. So that means what I'm looking to buy what's cheap at the moment. What's cheap at the moment is baseball, right? You have football season going on, you have basketball season going on, you have hockey going on, and what's no one paying attention to? Baseball, right? And what I'm doing with these cards is I'm gonna send it in to be graded and sell it in January and February and March. And think about it for a second, right? If you're gonna buy a card to get it graded and you're gonna sell it, well, if it's gonna take like 4 to 6 to 8 weeks to get graded, don't you wanna buy an asset that's going to appreciate, not depreciate, right? And what's going to appreciate is baseball, right? January, February, March, spring training rolls around, and the thing that's gonna go up is baseball. So I was on the hunt for baseball. And where I buy a lot of my big cards is actually on Facebook. So on eBay, that's where I buy a lot of my cards that might range from $500 to $2,000. I know those are big cards as well. But whenever I'm buying a card for like 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, it honestly either comes from a card show or Facebook, very rarely eBay. And that's just because on Facebook I have a lot of connections. I've been doing this a long time. And I had a buddy who, not a buddy, but somebody I've just known in the hobby for a long time, post a card of Shohei Ohtani. It was a 2018 Bowman Chrome Atomic, and I'll put a picture right here, and it was a BGS 9. This is gonna sound strange to people who haven't graded cards before, but what you can do when grading cards is you can actually crack a card out of the case and get it regraded. So you might send a card in that's a 9, for example, and maybe it got a 9 because there were some dust marks on the card. You can crack it out of the case, wipe off the dust marks, and send it back in to be graded. And the same card that was once a 9 might grade a 10. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but that's just how sports cards works. Now, in sports cards, there's two big grading companies. There's PSA, which is the biggest, and then there's Beckett, which is second. They used to be around tied, but now they're second. Now, if you know how to utilize these grading companies, you could actually make really good money. So PSA, when you send a card in for PSA, the goal is to get a PSA 10, okay? And PSA 10s are worth more than a Beckett 9.5. When you send a card into Beckett, the goal is to get a 9.5. You can get a Beckett 10, but they're very far and few between. Now, if you know how to work these grading companies, you can make some pretty good money. So Beckett, they focus more on centering and care less about corners and edges. Why? That's just how they grade cards. I don't know. PSA, on the other hand, they'll let a card grade a PSA 10 that's a little bit off-centered, but they need the corners and edges to be absolutely crisp, okay? So what you can do, if a card is graded a Beckett 9 and you see it's a little bit off-centered, and that's why I graded a 9, but the corners and edges are crisp, if you know what you're doing, you can crack it out of the case and Beckett and send it off to the other grading company at PSA. Once again, I know it sounds a little bit bizarre, but it's just how sports cards works. And just to give you an example, a Beckett 9 a card, let's say that's $500. You send it into Beckett. If it grades a 9, it'll be worth around $500. If it grades a 9.5, usually on average it'd be about 7 to 8 to 900 in that range. And a PSA 10 will be about 12 to 13 to 1400. So you can buy these cards that are Beckett 9s, and honestly, a lot of the time, because 9s don't have the same desire, even though a card might be worth $500, as a 9 it's less desirable, and honestly you could usually get a pretty good discount for $400, maybe $450. And the beautiful thing about buying a card that's already graded at a 9 is you can see exactly what's wrong with it. When a card is graded at Beckett, it has something called subgrades. So it has the big grade, which will say 9, and then it has subgrades. So it'll say the centering, the corners, the edges, and the surface. And each of those subgrades has their own grade. So the centering might be a 9, the edges might be a 9.5, the corners might be an 8.5, and the surface might be a 9. So before buying the card, you already know what's wrong with it, okay? So when I bought this Shohei Ohtani card, I knew what was wrong with it already, and I knew the flaws it has. Based on those flaws, and if I was able to clean up the card a little bit, I would have been able to send it off to PSA and have a decent chance of getting a 10. So I'm gonna jump into my computer now and show you the card, what I paid, how I found it, what I was looking at when I was buying this card, and everything in between. And honestly, it's pretty shocking to someone who's never bought and sold sports cards before, especially. It's gonna blow your mind. So let's go to my computer. If you're enjoying the content of the video and want to learn how to make a side income with sports cards, I spent the past 3 months putting together a training to show you exactly how it's done in detail. Sports cards has allowed me to live a life beyond my wildest imagination, and I am thankful for the hobby every single day. That is the reason I teach sports cards, and I am so passionate about it. At the end of the training, we offer a paid program where you can work closer with me. However, I don't want you joining until you've watched the free training I put together. It will show you exactly what's inside the program and how to make money with sports cards, and from there, you can make an educated decision. So if you'd like to sign up for the free training, either scan the QR code on the screen or text Eric to 631-544-7005 or click the link in the description. Just to repeat it, you can either scan the QR code or text Eric to 631-544-7005 or click the link in the description. Now let's get back to the video. All right, so here's the card at stake. This is the card I bought, and I'm gonna walk you through everything I was looking at when I was buying this card. So this is an app called Alt you can use to look at comps of cards. When I say comp, I just mean recent sale. And I bought this card, it was October or November actually. In a video I said November before, but it may have been a little bit earlier. Now, this is what I was looking at, okay? These were the recent sales of the card. This was at the time, this was the only one I saw, okay? So recent sale, right? Recent sale. A Beckett 9.5 did $26,000. This was the data I was given, and also I knew that Ohtani had a good chance of signing with a big team and his value would go up. So this is what I knew. Now, I was able to negotiate and buy this card actually in cash. I met up with the person and bought it in cash for $9,750, okay? So I paid $9,750. Now, for those of you guys who are familiar with sports cards, you would know that a Beckett 9.5, a Beckett 9 is usually worth about half, maybe a little bit more. So I valued the card, in my opinion. Once again, it's tough because the card is so rare. It's such a high-end card. But I value the card somewhere between $10,000 to $12,000 in that range. Like, once again, it's tough to say. Now, I paid $9,750. Now, my plan was to send this back into Beckett, but I actually ended up sending it back into PSA. So I sent it to PSA, and I know this card is going to cost me a lot to grade. The way PSA works is the higher end of a card you buy, the more they charge you for grading. I think it's ridiculous, but that's just how it goes. So I knew my grading cost, right, was going to be about roughly $1,200 in that range, okay? So realistically, right, I'm all in for, right, $9,750 plus $1,200. I'm all in for $10,950. Now, I know there's one of two things that are going to happen. It could grade a PSA 9 or it could grade a PSA 10. I knew that the chances of it grading lower was pretty minimal. Now, when I was looking at this card, if you look here, what I was saying before in the video, so this card has 9 centering, 8.5 edges, 9.5 corners, and 9.5 surface. With PSA, they really care about corners a lot and edges. And the centering didn't look so bad. What was bad about this centering is if you look closely here, the back centering is what was killing this card. Beckett cares a lot about the back centering. PSA does not. It's just something you know from being in the hobby a long time. And if you look here at this back centering, you see how this bottom is bigger than the top, right? That's why the centering is off. The front centering is actually pretty good. Like the left and right are equal, the top and bottom is pretty equal. But this is what was killing the centering. So I knew, okay, the corners are good. PSA won't care that much about this back centering. And this card has 8.5 edges. I was trying to look for the problem with the edges, and I couldn't find it. And so it had to be minimal. So I knew this card at the minimum was going to be a PSA 9, okay? So at the time when I was buying it, I knew a PSA 9 would be about, $12,000 to $14,000 in that range. But a PSA 10, right, is big money, right? PSA 10 will be anywhere, once again, it's tough to say, but like anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000. So if it grades a 9, I break even, maybe make a little bit of money. If it grades a PSA 10, I'm making really good money. And I gave this about a 20 to 30% chance to get a 10. Now actually, after I bought the card, there was a PSA 9 sale of $12,200. So this is what it would have sold for as a 9. Now the card's worth a little bit more now because his signing and stuff. But this is the math I was dealing with. So hopefully this makes sense, right? This is the data I was given. This is what I value the card at. This is what I actually paid. This is how much it was going to cost me to grade it, which means I'm all in for $10,950. And these were the two possible things that would happen, at least in my books, right? Anything could always grade an 8, get damaged in the mail, but this is what I was looking at. And I sent the card into PSA, and boom, the card graded a 10. They weren't supposed to grade the autograph. I don't know why they graded it a 9, because honestly, the autograph looks good. Looks good to me, but that's a story for a different day. But even though it says 9, where it says up there, Gem Mint 10, that means this card is graded a 10, okay? And as a 10, like I said, it's going to be worth somewhere in this range. I already have an offer for $28,000. I did not accept it because I got lucky. The card came back when he signed that big contract with the Dodgers. I think I'll sell it for anywhere between like $32,000 to $35,000 probably. So I'm not going to sell myself short. But this is the math. I found the card on Facebook. I met up with the guy in person. And yeah, I gave him cash, and it ended up, going well for me. But let's head back to the camera. So hopefully that video was informative. And just to be perfectly honest with you, I do this a decent amount, buying these huge cards and taking these big risks, and it only ends up working out like 20 to 30% of the time. And when it doesn't work out, usually I lose like $1,000 or $2,000. But when it does work out, right, you can see I'll make anywhere like 20, 25, 30 grand with this one card. And I'm not saying this is where you need to start buying and selling sports cards, because you shouldn't do this first. It's a huge risk and it'll probably go wrong. You really need to know what you're doing. But if you know how to time the market, find cards to get graded, sure, you might not make 20 grand on a card, but you could, make a few $100s per card and, build up a nice sustainable side income. And yeah, so hopefully this video, you found value in it. Hopefully it shows you like the in-depth world of sports cards, especially the high-end stuff. Like, it gets pretty crazy, the money you can make, just how much these cards sell for. I still find it unbelievable that people pay, 20, 30, 40 grand for, a piece of paper with a pen autograph on it when you think about it. But hopefully you like this video. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, comment below what you think. I'll see you in the next video.